What's going on, everyone? In this video, we're going to talk about Daca Advanced Parole. What is it? How do you apply for it? Why would you apply for it? And should you apply for it? We're going to talk about all those things right now. Okay, first of all, Daca Advanced Parole. What is that? First of all, it's only available to people with Daca. If you don't know what Daca is, it is, as of today, is too late for you to apply for one. I mean, you can apply for one, it's just not going to be approved. They're just going to hold it because they're not approving initial Daca applications. If you currently have Daca, you can extend it, which is nice, but, it is what it is. So if you don't know what Daca is, this video is not for you. This video is only for people who have Daca. So for those people who hold Daca status, Daca Advanced Parole is a subset or a benefit that is available to some people who hold Daca. Asking for permission to leave the United States and re-enter. So it's basically asking for permission in advance to come back into the United States. So that's what Daca Advanced Parole is. Why does Daca Advanced Parole even exist? Well, Daca Advanced Parole helps answers one, if not two, different issues. One, the Daca holder probably hadn't been to their home country or out of the country ever since they entered the U.S., which they entered the U.S. as a child, and that's why they have Daca. So it allows for temporary foreign travel and the ability to come back into the United States. That can have value in and of itself. The second option, or the second benefit of getting Daca Advanced Parole, is that now you can use it as a foundation, as a stepping stone to perhaps apply for adjustment of status, which is essentially the process of applying for a green card while still here in the United States. Frankly, that's the best, most preferable option of applying for a green card, if it is an option for you, is to apply while you're here in the United States. And Daca Advanced Parole can provide the foundation for somebody to apply for adjustment of status here in the United States. Without Daca Advanced Parole, the Daca holder may not be eligible for adjustment. With it, they might be. So that's why you would want to get Daca Advanced Parole. How do you apply for Daca Advanced Parole? The application is a Form I-131 application for travel document. And what you have to try to establish to the satisfaction of immigration is that there is some kind of a need to leave the United States. According to their website, one basis for which advanced parole would not be approved would be to just travel for vacation, or you want to go to Norway or whatever, just to go do it. That is not an appropriate use of the Daca Advanced Parole process. Daca Advanced Parole requires a more substantive, more substantial reason as to why you need to travel. They list three broad categories. All three categories we have seen in our practice and applied successfully for Daca Advanced Parole in the past. Humanitarian purposes. Perhaps you're trying to visit an ailing relative or attend the funeral of a very close family or friend outside of the United States. That could be a good basis. Educational purposes. Perhaps the educational program that you're in has a travel abroad component to it, or perhaps a foreign research component to it. That could be a valid basis for leaving. Employment purposes. Perhaps your employer wants you to meet with the client overseas, or perhaps wants you to go to a training or conference that's being held outside of the United States. That could be a valid basis. In other words, there's got to be a good excuse to leave the United States. So, applying for Daca Advanced Parole, you would file the application for travel document. If your case was being handled by us, for your DACA advanced parole, we would submit a G-28. That's a notice of entry of appearance of attorney for that specific matter, the DACA advanced parole matter. We would submit, of course, the Form I-131. It's a 5-page form. It's a very simple form. Name, date of birth, address, things of that nature. You're going to have to put the countries that you are going to be visiting and the purpose of the visit. Finally, you're going to need to substantiate the purpose of that visit. One thing you're going to learn going through the immigration process, whether it's through a lawyer or whether it's through yourself, is that immigration is not exactly a very trusting bureaucracy. Just because you say you want to visit your ailing relative, or just because you say that you want to, or that your employer wants you to meet with a client in Germany, for example, doesn't mean that they're going to believe you. For example, for the ailing relative, you got to provide documentation. You got to provide documentation from the relative's doctor in the foreign country, detailing the particular diagnosis or the medical reason why the relative is ailing. Perhaps give a good reason as to why that relative can't just try to visit the DACA holder in the United States, and that it's therefore necessary for the DACA holder to travel to the foreign country to go visit. Otherwise, the visit's not going to happen. If it's going to be from an employer, a letter from the employer's letterhead by a supervisor or somebody from HR or something, indicating the reason why the DACA holder needs to go to the foreign country for work. For school, the semester abroad program details. Whatever the basis is, you got to back it up with documents. Without the documents, your application has no chance of succeeding. Finally, there's the filing fee. The filing fee for DACA advanced parole as of today, February 24th, 2024, is $575. Come April 1st, 2024, so in about a month, a little bit more than a month, the fee goes from $575 to $630. It's hundreds of dollars if you do it on your own, and it's more than that if you hire an attorney to help you with it. So, DACA advanced parole sounds great, right? You get to travel out of the country and come back. Perhaps it might help you file for an adjustment of status, which is the preferable way to try to get a green card. So everything's great, right? If you have DACA, you should apply for advanced parole no matter what. Wrong. There are certain classes of people with different backgrounds, immigration background, criminal backgrounds, where it might not be worth it to apply for DACA advanced parole. If they have a deportation in their past, for example, or a particular crime that didn't prevent them from getting DACA but could prevent them from coming back into the country, that could be a problem. I guess what I'm saying is that even if the process from the DACA advanced parole perspective, if that all works, your application gets approved, you leave the country, you return to the country, your passport and parole document is stamped as you having a legal entry. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be eligible for adjustment of status. It doesn't necessarily mean that. And so if you're not going to get the benefit of the adjustment of status, you have to ask yourself, is it even worth it going through the expense and the stress of the DACA advanced parole process to begin with if it's not going to result in a green card? Of course, it might be worth it. The basis for the travel might really be that important. It might really be that important for you to, for example, visit a dying relative. But it's something to keep in mind that just because you get DACA advanced parole doesn't mean you get all the benefits under the sun just because you get it. The other problem, and this is the DACA advanced parole process can go very wrong. And by very wrong, I mean you get approved on the DACA advanced parole, you go to the foreign country, and you're not allowed to come back because of something bad in your background. So pay attention to negative immigration history like multiple entries, removals, false claims to U.S. citizenship, things of that sort. You're also going to want to be careful if you have any kind of criminal history or criminal background. the bottom line is that before leaving the country, embarking it pursuant to the DACA advanced parole process, you really need to speak to an attorney. It is vital that an attorney helps you assess the risks and the rewards of going through this process. So in conclusion, DACA advanced parole is a potentially great benefit to those people who are otherwise not adjustment eligible in the United States and who otherwise would want to be able to travel temporarily out of the country and come back. A great benefit for them, but it's not for everyone. And it is very important that when you go through this process, that you weigh the risks and the rewards. And the only way to do that is with somebody who really knows what they're doing, and unfortunately that usually means getting an immigration attorney on something like this. I have a prior video that talks about, do you really even need a lawyer, and sometimes you don't. My advice when you're going through the advanced parole process, this is one of those situations where you really, really need to speak to a lawyer first. Okay, thank you, and I'll see you next week.